welcome back to Seraphine TV. As always, this is the best place to be. And today, guys, I have a very special guest for the love of children and family. I have a special guest just addressing children issues, and I will allow you to listen to her. I know this is a very informative content to everyone, and this is one of the content that can be watched by everyone. So far so good. We appreciate your support. Those who've been watching our videos, those who subscribed, we really appreciate you. And those who are yet to subscribe, this is the time. Please subscribe. Subscription is free, absolutely free. No one is charging you. Yes, guys, as I mentioned to you and I promised you, here we are. I'm bringing to you with a lot of pleasure. I want to present to you our guest of honor today. A very learned, honorable lady, gracious lady, and I'm hoping and trusting that you will enjoy this content. So stay put and watch the video to the end. I will allow her to introduce herself to us, how she loves to be called, what she does. Yeah, so yes, please.
Okay, so thank you so much for this opportunity. My name is Lorna Karumba. I'm a counseling psychologist by profession.
Tell them.
It's been 3 years of working, dealing especially with children. I am a child psychologist. And more importantly, I work under a department, State Department of Gender, just supporting and helping survivors of gender-based violence through maybe abused children who have been neglected, children who have gone through any sexual abuse or even physical abuse. And that's what I love to do. So generally, I work with children. I am passionate about children. And for me, I feel we as adults, we tend to feel like, you know, as we can get help anytime. But a child is very vulnerable. A child is very innocent and very sensitive. So I decided to get into this because I realized children are being neglected in a way, you know. For an adult, it's very easy to just come into a counseling room and say, I want counseling. But what about the child? The child has to go through various steps and various ways. So that is why I'm so passionate about children. And I feel this is it's a place where I feel I'm at home, just helping these children and, you know, just talking to these children, and they're able to share and they're able to open up. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Wow. She does a lot of work, and we have all the pleasure. It's an honor to have you on this channel, so that we get to tap into knowledge and also to inform our audience on about children and what we can do in the life of children. So stay there and please watch the video to the end. Yes. So how do you go about all this? You've told us a lot that involves your work. How do you go about it?
Okay, so first and foremost, I have an office. So I'm a counseling psychologist, as I had mentioned, and I have an office, and majorly I deal with children. So my office is more children oriented. I'd have like games, I'll have like toys, I'll have drawing materials, I'll have books for them to read, because a child is not an adult. A child is not someone you'd go and tell, you know, sit down and now tell me about your story. They'll not tell you about their story. So we use a lot of games, a lot of play items, things to touch and things for, you know, their own enjoyment to help them. So that's where I start. And also through where I work, I'm also able to get like a lot of insight on abused children and what happens when a child is abused. What happens when a child, for example, comes into the office and says, I was defiled by, you know, my mother, I was defiled maybe by my stepdad, I was defiled by, you know, a father or even a neighbor, or so on and so forth. What are the steps that are supposed to be taken? So the office majorly guides me on that. And also I work also in conjunction with a few of my colleagues, where we also help and try and see how best we can support these kids. Sometimes we go to children's homes, sometimes we go to homes where there are abandoned kids, sometimes we even visit places where maybe they are even 2 months old children, 3 months, just to do assessment and find out, are these children really okay, or there's something more to whatever that they have. So that is the work that I normally do on a daily basis. But other than that, I'm pursuing my master's right now in counseling psychology, and I'm hoping also to do a bit more on child psychology, child and adolescent psychology.
Great, great. Now, just on what you mentioned, that you deal with the kids who are vulnerable and abused, it's more of based on protection.
Yeah.
Like you work for the interest of the children.
Yes.
And in Kenya, it is rampant. Like we hear on social media, and I'm meant to believe that the cases we hear are less than the real cases.
That is true. Yes,
Is it?
That is true.
So how do you find, is it hectic? Is it too much? How like, would you give us statistics of the numbers of what is happening roughly?
Okay, I'll just use the World Health Organization statistics, which say that 1 in 3 children have been abused, and 1
One
in
in
5
what?
1 in 3 children have been abused.
It's that bad.
Yes, and 1 in 5 women were abused while they were a child. So that means that the statistics, if that is the World Health Organization, that's globally, that means that even in Kenya, it could be the same statistics. Of course, for us, as we say, more people are abused, but less people report. So what happens is with children, it's very hard for example, a child to come out in the open and say, I was abused. It's very, very difficult, unless you're very close to
Because
that
even
child.
some abused and even threatened.
Yes, that is true. Actually, 3/4 of them are threatened and told, if you say, I'll kill you, or I'll kill your parents, or I'll never even talk to you again, or you'll find yourself, I'll not pay some money for you, or I'll give you some money so that you don't talk about it. So what happens a lot with kids is that you have to be very, very kind of go to their level. You can't talk to a child the way we are talking, for example.
No.
You have to really go to their level, talk their language, so that they're able to understand. And that's where you find that most times a child will come in, or a parent will tell me that I want you to see my child because my child has become very isolated. They no longer talk. They're withdrawn from their friends. They tend to be having difficulty concentrating in school. Grades have dropped. By the time they come into the session, within 2 sessions, I'm able to come up and say, this child was abused. So why didn't the parent see? Maybe it's because they were not able to go down to that level. And the parent or the
parents
child,
are too busy.
Yes, exactly. Or the fear, even. They tell you, mom told me, I'm so scared if I tell mom that, it's dad who abused me. I mean, will she really believe me? But when now I come to her level, she's able to tell me as it is. And the sad part about it is that children are abused and they keep it, or you find maybe you tell a parent that this child has been abused, but they say, no, this is not normal. It's common knowledge. It's okay. And so they, they kind of make it normal. And years later, as I was saying, 1 in 5 women, you find years later is when this lady comes up and
a woman
says,
who was hurt as a child.
And
But
comes
maybe
out
just
and
before we proceed, we are just talking of abuse. Maybe we define what abuse is. Because you've mentioned abuse, and for the sake of our audience, maybe for them to understand, when you're talking abuse, how do you define abuse? Sorry.
Okay, so abuse is basically when, for example, there are different types of abuse. There's like physical abuse. Yes,
tell them.
There's physical abuse. Physical abuse is when you inflict any type of physical harm onto an individual. For example, a wife is beaten up by the husband. That is physical abuse. Then we have emotional abuse. This is one of the areas that, at least physical abuse we all know about, but emotional abuse, most of us don't even know how to define it because we've all gone through some type of emotional abuse. It could be verbally, it could be someone telling you that you're very fat, or something that hurts you emotionally, something that you feel this person has actually inflicted some harm on me. Remember, abuse has to inflict some sort of harm on the individual, whether psychologically, socially, physically, or even emotionally.
And then spiritually.
Then we have sexual abuse, the one we all know. Now, there are different types of sexual abuse. For a child, it's defilement. Any child below the age of 18, that one is defined as defilement. Then we have rape, which is now for above 18 for women. Then we have sodomy. Sodomy is now rampant. Actually, it's something that now needs to come up and people need to talk about it. We always used to talk about the girl child, but even the boy child right now is going through a lot.
And
so there's sodomy, and then there's also sexual harassment. That does not have to have penetration, but it's someone who maybe comes and maybe for example tells you the way maybe you're looking, maybe they comment about something that you're not comfortable about, maybe how your chest looks, something that is sexually, especially it happens a lot in workplace environment where you find maybe someone wants to have some sexual advances towards you and you do not accept those advances, so harasses you sexually or tells you that you have to do this for that person to give you this. It could even be a hug that you feel is very sexually uncomfortable, or a kiss, or anything that you feel is very uncomfortable in the sense that you've not consented to that kind of advance. Then we also have, for children, we have something called child neglect or child abandonment. When, for example, a mother leaves the children unattended, for example, leaves the children away, that's called child abandonment. And then when the father refuses or neglects the child, in the sense that doesn't pay the school fees, maybe doesn't give them maybe basic needs, that one is called child neglect. So those are the two types. Then nowadays, this one is coming up very fast, child trafficking, where you find, for example, especially nowadays, you find children are being trafficked left, right, and center. Then we have the one that now people are being abducted. It could also be abduction of adults, or it could also be child abduction, where you find maybe all of a sudden, missing persons. There's usually a hotline for missing persons, and they were talking about, I was listening to them on TV the other day, they were talking about how high these cases have been, that people are missing. Everyone is, you just come, you're there with your child, before you know it, the child is gone. You're there with your loved one, never to be found. You're found with your loved one, you're just walking somewhere, all of a sudden the last time they were seen is with a blue jeans and white top, and it's becoming very serious. So child abduction or abduction of individuals. We also have a very common kind of abuse, which is also economic abuse, where you find maybe, for example, someone, you're working for someone and they refuse to pay you. So, for example, they are not able to give you what is yours, what is rightfully yours. Then we also have economic abuse in the terms of, wife and husband, where, for example, you're being harassed. You're not able to be given the money, maybe, for example, to do some specific things. So you find even economically you're struggling. So these are the types of abuse.
And even child labor.
Child labor, yes. It could also be child labor, which also is so rampant nowadays. You find young children are working as house girls, house boys. You find young children are working even in supermarkets, vendor machines, and so on and so forth. It's really getting to a point. There are so many types of abuse, but those are the ones that are most common, especially in our context in Africa today.
Great. Then from that definition then, I'm wondering, you must be having a lot of work.
Yes, there's a lot of work. Yes.
So how do you reach out? How do you reach out to these cases? How do you get to know? You have your team working on the ground for you, or you solely depend on calls?
Okay, so for me, majorly because I work also under the church. I'm in a Catholic church just around my area, where I also get referrals. But I also do a lot of sensitization, a lot of talks, a lot of, maybe I'd go to a specific church, I'd go to a specific community, talk to them, and from there is where you get people coming out and telling me that, I have a child who has been abused, or there's a certain lady who I know has been going through this kind of violence, and so on and so forth. Because I not only work with abuse cases, I also work just with general mental health issues. I work with things like depression, especially depression is on the rise. Kenya, we were marked number 3, which I am 100% sure it is correct, because of the cases that I receive even at my desk every single day of depression, suicidal ideations. So many people right now are feeling tired with life, with high cost of living, inflation, the kind of uncertainty right now in the country with elections coming up. There's a lot of fear, and people are going to a point where they're feeling like there's no peace. Marriages also, there's also an issue right there. Actually, I was laughing the other day with our father in our church, who was saying that he had done a registration for marriages and wanted to see how many people would come in for marriage registration, and sadly no one registered in a period of 3 months. So that is where we are. That is the situation.
So marriages are under threat.
So now even marriages are under threat. So you find that maybe the place where you feel you're feeling better, maybe at home, you find maybe couples are coming in and telling you how frustrated they are. Physical abuse is so rampant nowadays in marriages. Sexual abuse is now getting to a high. Many people don't know this, but rape happens even in marriages. You find maybe economic abuse. There's even social abuse, where a person, for example, a wife is locked in the house and told you can't leave the house. A husband is told you cannot leave this house, and you're locked inside, and you're not able to be yourself. You're not even able to go to work, for example. So these are the type of cases that I normally get, but through a lot of referrals. And as a counseling psychologist, you don't work alone. You work with like a pool of so many people. A social worker, a psychiatrist, a doctor. We work even with psychologists. We work with people like what are they called? Just people who are on the ground, like chiefs. We work with even a whole lot of people, because counseling is holistic. So I have to know like a number of people, and so that's how I get my referral. The chief would call me and tell me, I have a case here, can you see this person? Sometimes you even have to go and do pro bono, because this woman tells you I have nothing, I don't even have 20 shillings to feed me. So will you really tell them to, cut
No,
off?
they won't even listen to you.
Yes, exactly. So I think there's a lot that goes about with what I do, but I love what I do, because every single day I tell myself, as long as I touch one person, as long as I help one person, I have touched that one person, who will touch another person, and that way I'll be able to help the whole world.
True. Wow, that's wonderful. But on the same now, I think I'll really narrow it more on children today, on this particular video. And I know I'll have you more time, we'll have more time with you, so we address other areas. But today I'll focus on part of children. And you've just mentioned that on your working, you realized it is so rampant, abuse of children is so high. Like which cases are they common? The low newborns, the school going, or the high school level? Which ones are commonly abused?
Nowadays it's sad, because I think just the other day, as you had, we used to think these things happen to teenagers, these young ones, maybe they are not yet to the point of, getting to that point. But sadly, just the other day, I think it was even on news, where a young child of 3 days was abused, was defiled. And you ask yourself...
A young child of?
3 days old.
3 days?
3 days is a child you cannot even hold. I'm imagining it's the size of almost my hand. And to me, as I was watching that video on TV, I asked myself, what could that mother be going through? And so right now we can't even say it is more rampant in this, it's more all children. So nowadays we say, as long as the child has been born, the child from all the way from 0 years, as we would say, all the way to around 17 and a half, are going through abuse.
So
and
children
nowadays,
are not safe.
Yeah, they are not safe at all. And you find that the sad part about it is that children don't have a voice. It's not like an adult. It's not like women now. We are coming up. We have a voice. But what about the little children? What about that young 3-day-old child? How will she be able to live her life? Maybe she'll be told about this abuse way later in life, that your stepdad did this and this. But what will happen to this child?
And from your statistics, you must have made an observation that commonly who abuses these children?
Now, the sad part about it is that the people who abuse these children are people who are known to them.
So people who are supposed actually to protect,
to love and protect them and care for them, actually take advantage of this situation. For example, you find you've left your child with a caregiver, you've gone to your work, you are certain that this person will protect your child. But way later, you find that this person has maybe neglected your child, or has even abused your child. So many cases are coming up nowadays. You find on TV, you find, oh, my house girl, abused my child, actually hit my child, and the child has scars all over. You find maybe uncles, you find fathers nowadays are coming up with this thing of abuse. You find stepfathers, especially nowadays, and we find maybe even sadly, even in our churches today, our pastors, our priests. Coming out with this thing, and you wonder, where are we safe?
And even teachers in schools.
Yes, exactly. Teachers in schools. You find even people who are maybe supposed to be with them. You find maybe you arrange a tutor for your child to come in and talk to your child and help your child in a specific area, but they end up abusing your child.
So does this explain why of late we've had case just the other day, the senator's son committed suicide? And the story, how it was flowing, is like he didn't want to go back to school. Is that bullying? Will bullying be part of this? And there's so high rise of suicidal cases from students, and even dropping out of school, and such like cases are so common. Does it mean that we are failing as a society? Have we failed as parents, as society, or what's happening?
Now, what is happening is that now with the rising cases of mental health, because all this is mental health. Yes. This is a bracket, this is mental health, then it has all these kind of umbrellas or subsections that mental health has. And sadly is that, children, or especially school-going children, especially now, let me talk about the teenagers, because that is our most sensitive period of a child. You find that a child wants to talk. But nowadays we are so engrossed in what we do that is the teachers, that is the parents, that is the caregivers. We are so busy.
We are busy.
And we can't blame ourselves because, again, we are also living in a very high cost kind of living. So you find that if I tell myself, okay, I'll sit down and listen to my kids, then what will they eat? How will they go to school, for example?
But we need to strike a balance, right?
Yes, exactly. That's where I was coming to. That sometimes, in as much as we are rushing for this, we also need to remember that, at the end of the day, our core purpose, God gave us something specific, something beautiful to give back and to be able to take care of these children. I think for me that is the most beautiful thing you can ever do as a human being. And so as we continue on, hustling and bustling. The other day I keep telling this story each and every time, but the other day I just stood in the middle of archives, National Archives, and as a psychologist I wanted to see, can I be able to tell what people are going through? Can I be able to really get a glimpse of what people are actually going
from observation?
Through? Just from observation. And I stood, and the first lady passed very fast. She was with a child, and she was looking very agitated and very angry with the child. I don't know what the child had asked for at some point, and she was trying to pinch the child very much and tell the child, I'm not going to be very happy with you. And the child was very annoyed and screaming at the top of it. I think she was embarrassed.
Did you guess the age of the child?
The child was around 3 years or so. Around 3 years, 3.5.
Too young.
Yeah, very young. And she was being pinched, and the child was, very. And at reached a point, the child just stood in the middle of the road, and the mother wanted to just pick the child and throw. I could tell them amount of frustration. And then next, a man passed through, and the man was really frustrated and was talking on phone very loudly and saying, I'm here, I'm in Nakuru town, I'm on my way. And I asked
but you're in archives.
I was like, wait, am I in Nairobi? For a minute I thought maybe I had been moved and maybe I'm in Nakuru and I don't know.
He's actually lying.
And I actually asked myself, how frustrated could he be that he's telling someone I'm in Nakuru town, I'm on my way, I'm coming, And I looked at the man and I could see frustration on his face. Then I saw a lady passing through. She seemed excited. I don't know whether she had just been asked by a man to marry because she was looking very beautiful in her nice little dress and some nice shoes.
She looked like she had been
very
proposed
happy.
to.
Yeah, very happy with life. Life looked ecstatic. And then there was this lady who just stood in the middle of the road, and she looked like she had just been told the worst news,
Sorry.
And she looked like at that moment, things could get really bad. And she looked like she needed help. And I could see her reaching out, and I think she called someone, and the person was like, I'm coming for you, just stand where you are. I think she had just been told about some death, or I could tell maybe she had just been told some very sad news. Maybe someone had just gotten sick, because I remember her saying, I can't even get to the hospital. So maybe someone had just passed on or so on. And I told myself, that is what we go through. That is, I think
that was a general phase.
Yes, because there's happiness, there's frustration, there's this person who is just angry with the child, and then there's also the happiness, there's the sadness, and all these things. And I asked myself, that's the life you're going through. So if that's the life of an adult, what about the child? Who, for example, you see this lady, let me give an example of this lady. She was able to call. But what about the child? Do we give spaces for children to talk? Do we give, or for us, it's just you're a child, we're in toto, kaa kando, Or is it a place where you can tell, for example, a teenage high school that, you have a right to talk and say what you're going through. You have a right to stop.
They need space to voice.
To voice out their needs, to voice out that I'm not okay. And I always, every morning when I wake up, I say, it's okay not to be okay. As long as you don't give up.
Honestly.
As long as you don't give up. People leave it at it's okay not to be okay. And then what? As long as we don't give up. So for children, I am really advocating for spaces for them to talk. And that is why schools right now are being pushed by the government. I can see it coming, I can feel it coming, that within time, we'll reach a point where children will be given an opportunity, to have this mental health talk, to talk about these things, to even have voices even in the government, even in parliament, to say that we need this, for example, psychologists in the schools. We need, for example, a place where we can just open up and, we don't have to read from morning until evening. This day I just walked into the life of a child, a young child, especially now with how COVID has taken these children into, are we looking at their mental health? For example, a Form 4 entered Form 4 in May, I think it was April, and by December, this child is expected in 1 year, what they're supposed to have learned in 1 year, to learn in less than how many months? Now they are going on midterm tomorrow.
And Kenya, mostly we tell your success by your academic performance.
Yes.
So there's a lot of pressure to perform and pressure to society, just like you said. Their family is home.
Yes, exactly. At home it's not safe. In school there's a lot of pressure. So where does this child?
Church?
Where does this Church again, in as much as it's good, you find again there's also something lacking.
Someone was telling me church is not a very safe space.
It's also not, there's no, okay, according to us psychologists, we always tell these children that there's nowhere safe. Yeah? There's nowhere safe. It's for you to be able to see where can I be able to create my own kind of safe space. If you feel family is safe, good, go with family. But if you feel church is not safe, then talk about this, what's happening in church.
Then I think this kind of conversation, we need to engage more of parents, guardians and caregivers more than the children.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they have no choice, right? So I think parents, are you getting this? Those who are watching, are you enjoying this content? Hope you're with us. We're on the same page. And please remember to subscribe as we continue, like, show some love as we listen to Daktari. Because what she's telling us is, as parents, actually the challenge is to us as caregivers, because if she's saying even church is not a safe space, and we've always assumed, society, like people push, we don't even send kids, we push children to church, and you expect miracles to happen. But while at home there's already war, it's a toxic environment, schools they are suffering, you push them to church. Church may not have enough resources to deal with this. So how do we go about it?
Now it is for us to bring this awareness. Sadly,
awareness.
We don't know. I can imagine a parent is watching and asking, "Oh no, you mean? You mean?" It's because there's no awareness. We are too busy in the life that is there.
There's no life. Actually, put it in quote.
Exactly.
In life, because even the life we don't have.
We don't have it. And you find that what is so sad is that physical health is very, getting to a hospital right now.
It's
people
easy.
Taking care of their
If you have a boil, it's easy to walk into a clinic.
Very easy. Your child is sick, you carry them. Actually, you want to stop all that you're doing just to take this child to hospital. What happens in mental health? What happens when this child says, I'm stressed? Of course, our parents back in the days would tell you, oh, that is you and you're sick. It's not normal. Stress is something that you should, you should
actually,
check up
mental health is also stigmatized.
Yes,
and people bracket it to bandness. Yes. We just reduce it to one portion of mental health.
Yeah.
But then, I'm just thinking, it's easy to deal with children who are talking.
Yeah.
The school-going age, the teenagers, the adolescents. I think to me, then the newborns, the toddlers are more at risk because they won't express, they won't talk.
They won't talk. And what happens is that way later, there's something called PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So I find the damage is worse than if they were helped at that point. This 3-day-old child is lucky because she got help. She'll be able to go through maybe some sort of, counseling.
But you could just say she's lucky because she survived. Otherwise, she would have died.
Yeah, that would be another story. So what I'm saying is that, there's so many cases that is one case. How many cases are going through?
How many, by the way?
Per day. Today, per day. Like, for example, as we're speaking here, where is this child being abused? And the sad case is that, we know from 0 to around 3 years, the children don't go to school.
No.
So they stay at home. So at home, they are more vulnerable. Why? Because at home, you find the parents have gone. You find even, for example, I was talking to a certain parent the other day, and she says that she goes on Monday, she comes back on Friday. The child is
comes back, she's away.
She's away for the whole week. She goes on, it's like her work is, she goes away out of town. Friday she comes, spends time with the kid 3 days. She's a single mom, so she's left the child with the house girl. So what is going on with that child? And I was telling the mother that, in as much as you're getting the money, I asked her, for example, how much do you earn? And she told me the amount. And I told her, can you really compare that money with your child? Because if something were to happen today, you'd use all that resource back again to take this child for example, counseling sessions. For example, for maybe some sessions to improve, maybe if she has been abused, maybe hospital, maybe, and so many things.
But they always challenge, like just the scenario you described, they always challenge us that, if they have to stay at home, what will the child eat? So me, I always say, if you are asking us that kind of question, please strike a balance.
Yeah.
Like consider that kid has no one else to depend on. It is you. Yeah. So you have to create time, like try and strike a balance between your work and the child.
Yeah.
I also realized that these cases, people fear talking about them.
Yes.
Like so many children are even being abused in our hood, and people mind their business. We always minded to mind your own business. So how do we approach this? And if someone somewhere is also wondering, in their neighborhood, the neighbor already, the child as we are talking is being abused. Someone ever mentioned to me they had a neighbor, the kids would cry the whole night because the mom is at work. They were being abused by the help. The domestic helper of that house. But she couldn't tell anyone. Because reporting to that house means he's like snooping around to the neighbors' issues. So I know the approach to this. You have contacts, you can reach out, private numbers. Are there offices people can report without necessarily going to that house to point out?
Okay, so it's important for us to know that it's a society. You know, a child is of a society. Yes, it's true. Nowadays, especially with how we are living, you know, it's not like long ago where a village was, a house is here, it's immediately next to
the child belonged to the community.
Yeah, you get out and now this is my child. But nowadays you find you are locked up in these houses that have big walls, big doors, and you can't interfere much. And if you interfere again, you are liable to law. But I always say that at the end of the day, if you save that one child, you might have saved the whole society. Because this child, you can imagine this child supposed to get a child, the other child supposed to get a child, and so on and so forth. You know, we are building more of a generation.
Yeah.
So if you heal this one child, then you're able to heal so many children. And it's very important for us to know that there are numbers to call. Now,
guys, I know you are enjoying this video, this content about children.
We don't want to know. I don't know that it's passionate to know all information.
And it's not well has information wide range.
Exactly.
So this kind of information make sure we are aware so that
there are so many numbers that one can call. And the first one I'll start with the child's helpline.
And watch the video to the end. Remember to show us love on this. But yes, I was just thinking on children and abuse. Of late, many high school, we've just had Form 1 reporting enrolling some last month or this month? Last month. How do we help them? Because we've realized so many students are being abused, and the cases are so rampant in schools. Is bullying still on? And how do you guys get involved into this? Because schools deny it's not there. But we realize from out that it is still happening.
I think for me, actually there's a lot of cases in school, bullying being one of them. And now there's this new case of sodomy, lesbianism.
But you never talked about.
Yeah, that is something that is also coming up. And we are really trying to involve an administration on how best to see how these things can be like, can be helped, because the worst part about it is that you can't go there yourself as a person.
Even
you
as
have
a
to
parent,
work through the administration. Yeah? So what we are coming out and saying is that people need to talk about this. That means the children need to have an open space where they can talk about like what is going on. Like, for example, I'm a Form 1, I came the other day, I was bullied. Like, talk about it. So measures can be taken to help this child. Because I always say, if this one child, for example, is bullied, they're bullied in Form 1, it lowers their self-esteem. Maybe they came as a very, extroverted kind of person. Maybe they were very outgoing, and then you bully this person. Just as simple as I come and take away your whole suitcase and you don't have anything. And maybe this child knows that the parent really struggles to get maybe, for example, resources to help them to be even in Form 1. So what happens is that sometimes you need to understand that it needs to come all the way from the grassroots level. Grassroots level is from as little as the administration, the principal of the school. Do they have a guidance and counseling department? That is something that lacks. People just put their guidance and counseling, but there's really not a guidance and counseling teacher. So you find that, for example, I am teacher so-and-so and I teach chemistry, and I'm very tough, and I'm the guidance and counseling teacher. Really? Will the child really
it can't go together?
It can't go together. Remember, there's also a dual relationship, because I'm still teaching this child, and then they come and tell me, for example, that a certain male teacher, for example, abused me. How will that teacher help? So it really needs to come to a point, and that's why we are trying to push the government to have counseling psychologists.
There, it has to be separate.
It has to be a separate entity from a teacher and a guidance and counseling teacher. Because, for example, I want to be open as a child, and that's why you find the guidance and counseling say, we have guidance and counseling,
and they don't really come to the office.
No one comes. And
because actually even the office should be helping even the staff.
Exactly.
Even the teachers, not only the students.
Yeah, and right now with the rising cases of, how difficult it's been, we're not even looking at the teachers. The teachers are also struggling, honestly. Can imagine trying to put in a content of 1 year into less than 6 months, and at the end of the day you're being given a performance contract that you didn't get the number of A's that you got. How was I supposed to get this?
So who should reinforce this? The government?
The government should
the Ministry of Education?
Should come from the government, then should go through maybe for example the Ministry of Education, then come to, for example, the Board of Management in every school, then go to the principal, all the way down to the the person who cuts the grass.
The smallest unit.
Exactly.
Yes.
That I should, talk about if some, for example, these people know. Sometimes you might find even as you're talking to these people, maybe who mourn the loan and so on, they'll tell you that, the other day I saw teacher so and so with one of the students. But where will he talk? Where will he report such things from? So you find that at the end of the day, it gets very difficult for this person, and he says, oh, it's none of my business, as you were saying. I have nothing to do with it.
You mind your business.
Exactly. So you find at the end of the day, the child continues to be abused. The child continues to go through the sodomy, and you find maybe, for example, a child has been sodomized, and they have even like so many people who know that happened. They have, someone comes out and says, I can testify that this happened.
But they're not talking about it.
Exactly. There's no person to listen to this person. But if there could be like ways in which they can come in, strategies through the government to try and curb some of these things, because bullying is so detrimental to the child's mental health. And you find when you talk to an adult and you find that they're saying, I have a low self-esteem. I always ask them, how was your high school life? And they say, wow, I was bullied in Form 1, I was bullied in Form 2. By the time I reached Form 3, trying to get myself...
You are crushed already.
Yeah. And remember, the stage in which the adolescents are is a stage called identity versus role confusion. Now, if this child is not able to identify themselves, is not able to know that I am this person, I am this great person, I can talk in front of people, I can become who I am. I don't have to be a doctor, I don't have to be a nurse, I don't have to be an engineer, I can be a musician, for example, I can be an actor, for example. Once they identify themselves, it's very easy.
And it calls for a well highly esteemed person to get to identify that.
Yeah. So that is the stage in which they are in, but most of them end up going into role confusion, where they don't understand who they are. So by the time they're leaving high school, they're getting into campus, and you find now 3/4 of them enter into sexual promiscuity. You find there's also drug and alcohol abuse. A lot of marriages. You find a child just comes into campus and the first thing they want to get married. Why? It's because they haven't even identified themselves. So they don't even know who they are. So by the time they're getting into campus, now they get confused because there's a lot of freedom. Yeah. So it hurts the child.
But maybe just quickly, when we talk of bullying in schools especially, maybe someone out there, a parent who is so innocent, may not be having this kind of information. What are the few signs they will look out to? Because we realize most students suffer, and as a parent, you could have, they wish they knew this. Someone would have mentioned that their kids were actually going through that. So what are a few signs you could mention that when you look out to, a parent will see some signs like this one, there's a problem to reach out to? Yeah.
So maybe the first one I can talk about is withdrawn. Remember, you've just taken your child maybe for Form 1. This child was excited about going to school, but all of a sudden they're withdrawn. They're not able to maybe make friends. You find they're not talking, they're isolated. Maybe they are doing something specific, they're in their rooms throughout. Or they tend to, have maybe a negative body image. They keep telling you, oh, mom, I'm even fat. They start making comments that you're not used to, for example. You might even have, maybe you find they are having difficulty sleeping or difficulty eating. Especially with mental health, what happens is that if the child is very preoccupied with negative thoughts, if this person has been told, maybe as they were being bullied, they are being told, you'll never even make it in life. So you find that they start having like physical symptoms. Maybe they start, even losing weight. And that is why food and eating disorders are very common in high schools. That is anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. Why? Because the children have been told you're fat, for example. So now they tell themselves, okay, now I need to get a specific way of image, and I need to look a specific way to be able to move. So those are some of the signs you can look out for. And most importantly, it's for us to know that mental health is important.
It is.
And bullying is still part of mental health. All these things are under that bracket of mental health. So I think it's for us to understand that at the end of the day, that mental health is important, and it's as important as the physical health. So the same way you rush your child to go to the hospital is
Those are a few signs you look out to, with plus many others. But what you're saying, parents, guardians, and those around children, let's be on the lookout. That children are supposed to be protected, to be cared for, to be loved by everyone. So it is a duty of each person. The story of minding your own business, to wouldn't apply on this one. So let's all of us support our children. And also, I was just wondering, Dr. Do you have something else you do besides doing this? Because you look like all your life you do this daily. I doubt. When you're not looking out for children, you're not counseling, when you're not in office, what are you doing?
There are two main things I do. I am a singer, so I sing.
Which music?
I do a lot of, sometimes I sing in weddings, and I do also gospel music.
You have an album?
Okay, my album was when I was really young, like teenage years, so that one is
I would
want to, that one was young, but I'm trying to come up and see whether I can do that, because that's my self-care, when I'm stressed out or when I have so many cases in my mind, children, that's what I do. But more importantly, the one that I love to do with all that I have is I'm the moderator of the children, PMC children in our parish, and yes, now I spend with children now who have been abused and whatever. Now I like to just spend with normal children.
In a normal setup.
Yes, just normal setup, playing, laughing, being with them, and that for me is my joy. Actually, at the end of the week when I reach Sunday, I'm usually like, oh, today is just that.
You look out to.
I look out to Sunday and just spending time with those kids, singing in the choir also, and it just gives me life. It just makes me feel like,
So you got a life.
Of course I do.
You got a life.
Yes.
Anything you want to tell our parents, our society, our community, our audience on what we've been talking about? A parting shot?
Maybe it's very important for me to repeat that it's okay not to be okay, as long as you don't give up. And our children are still part of the society. They're still human beings. They're vulnerable, yes, they're sensitive, but they still have a voice. Create a safe space. As a parent, have you asked yourself, when is the last time you just sat down with your children and told them, talk to me whatever you feel like, and don't judge them. The problem with parents is that, yes, you tell them, talk to me, and then once they tell you I have a boyfriend, you're the first person to judge, Talk to them, feel free to talk to them and give them an opportunity to talk. Sadly, is that most of our children, 3/4 of the things that our children are going through, they do not talk to their parents, but rather talk to an outsider who may take advantage of them. So most importantly, resources are out there to help. People are there. As psychologists, we are there 24/7. That is all I do on a day-to-day basis, just helping out and ensuring that we live a better community, we live a better society. So you can reach out to me. Even the numbers I have given, call these numbers. They are free. We have been given resources free of charge. There's nothing to pay. Safaricom has been so kind to, partner with some of these organizations to ensure that you get free services, and so that you ensure that you get help whenever that you need help. So resources are out there. Reach out. It's okay not to be okay, as long as you don't give up. Thank you.
Wow. So yes, guys, as you heard, you've seen, we are here working tirelessly just to make sure we get you the best of the best. And with this kind of content, I know it's going a long way. We love our children. Please, let's be the safe space. Let us be that person that will bring the change, even if it means one. And as always, we love you. Keep it right here. Bye-bye. Nothing like hugging baby.
This guy is also good.